D is in dog zone. Those are just zones that they haven't been able to assess yet. Not us, the insurance companies and the other experts out there, not the city. We don't decide these, we just follow them. So real quickly, what to do, what can you do to mitigate your risk if you know, as Jordan said, when you're watching the weather, or you've got it on your phone, or you get an email, or you're watching the news, and I really think the weather people really scare us to death, but pay attention. If they say a storm is coming, or it's going to rain, the Dunlawton flood, that was very difficult because it started raining at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know, we're kind of asleep. But if you get a warning that flood water is coming, or rains are coming, or it's going to pour all night, or then do a few little things. For example, if your car is parked out on the street and you have access to a driveway or a different place to park, move your car. Because what's going to happen is Public Works, Public Utilities, and Park and Rec are going to be coming through with trucks and trying to clear the roads and clear storm drains and things like that. And there's your car parked right there. Plus it's going to get flooded. So if you can get it up, that would be great. If you were gardening the night before, because I've dealt with this here, we've got the cypress mulch and the bags and people out there beautifying their yards, and then the rains start coming down and they leave all that stuff out there in the yard. And then what happens when it starts pouring? With the swale that Branford was mentioning, those things start getting swept out into the street, they get into storm drains, they clog, and oh my God, what a pain in the neck for everybody. So try to think about what have I got out there that I need to bring in, trash cans, things like that. If you're in one of those B zones and it's going to get windy, bring stuff in. I know that Ken Donahue, our public information officer, he talks about sandbags and free. If there's a Walmart or Home Depot, if they're offering them and you've had on occasion flooding, go get them. If they're free, get them, store them in your garage or around the side of the house or wherever you can. Pets, make sure that with your pets that they've got to have been to the vet, you've got to have a crate, you've got to have a leash, and you've got to have your pet cards and information with you to go to the shelters if that had to happen, if you had severe flooding. And all those other little things. What I really feel for you guys is basically, if you're like me and you don't have a lot of extra cash floating around and your house got flooded, if you flooded before, I get phone calls and they ask me, will I flood again? Probably. Yep. And if you're in one of those high flood zones, what can you do the next time around? And if you've had to have, like, let's say ServPro come out and rip out your carpeting or turn on the big fans, get rid of your baseboards and things like that, maybe the next time around we have to put tile in or something else, because I really, really feel for you guys. But the best that I can tell you is there's one of me. I have extra cards if you need them. And if you have questions or you have a concern or you got flooded, call me and we will work to see what you've got. Okay?
Mary, you're up.
Good evening. My name is Larry Roberts. I'm the Community Development Engineer. I'm a licensed engineer in Florida and I have 44 years of experience. I've produced about 200 miles of flood insurance studies when I worked in private enterprise. I have specialty training from the Army Corps of Engineers in floodplain hydrology and hydraulics. And I'm currently thrilled to be your Community Development Engineer. I have news to bring you tonight from the city's initiatives. Since 1992, the city has participated in the community rating system as a voluntary participation of the National Flood Insurance Program. There's only about 6% of the cities in these United States that participate in the program, and the city of Port Orange is one of those. We participate in a small portion of the National Flood Insurance Program called the CRS, the Community Rating System, which is a comprehensive program to make a comprehensive approach to floodplain management. As a result of the recent initiatives of the city, we have graduated from a Class 7 to a Class 5. That brings us from people who are in the special flood hazard area from a 15% discount to a 25% discount. And for the first time since 1992, even policyholders in the X zone can earn a 10% discount on their flood insurance premium. There is one community in these United States that has achieved a Class 1. They've earned a 45% premium discount for their citizens as a Class 1. That's Roseville, California. We have a long way to go in Port Orange to achieve that level of comprehensiveness, but we continue to work on it. And we need to continue to work on it because there are other forces out there, as hard as staff and your city assets are working to get you these discounts. There are other pressures that are upward pressures on flood insurance premiums. For instance, the Congress has told FEMA you need to be more self-sustaining. You need to have a better balance between the premiums that you collect and the claims that you pay out. So right now the Congress has said FEMA every year you're going to increase the premiums by 5%. So we're working hard to get you discounts, but we're getting also upward pressure on premiums over here. Congress has said, FEMA, you need to assess all your primary policy owners, these are homeowners, a $25 surcharge to help cover your mapping. And if you've got a second home that you're using for an investment property, you get the privilege of paying a $250 surcharge on that property. Congress has also said these homes that were built before May the 16th of 1977, we used to subsidize those premiums, no longer. As of 2014, we're no longer subsidizing those folks whose homes were built before May 16, 1977. So if you say, Larry, I got a discount, but my premium still went up, why is that happening? It's because of these upward pressures on the premiums as well as the discounts that your city staff is trying to earn. I wanted to point out that right now mortgage rates are low, and there's a lot of interest in adjusting mortgage products, also in the home improvement lines of credit, and both those mortgages and the home improvement lines of credit require flood insurance coverage if the property is in a special flood hazard area. My advice to you is to work on your flood insurance first. Get the FEMA underwritten policy. Then go to do your mortgage work with your lender. Because if you go in there without your flood coverage solid in your back pocket, and you can show your lender, my property is covered, I've got the FEMA coverage, you should write me this mortgage product, or you should issue me this home improvement line of credit. Then if you don't have that in your pocket ready to go, then they are likely to force a policy upon you which has higher premiums, no attention to discounts, and is very hard to get out of. So from your floodplain manager, please do your flood insurance work first, then your mortgage work. And
Question,
then,
sir?
yes, sir.
Is Sleepy Hollow now in a floodplain? Has it been designated?
There are so many properties within the city that are within the floodplain, without the floodplain. We should look at those on a specific basis, and I'm happy to consult with you at, during.
Right before the flood, within a year, I had just moved into the house, and I remember asking the insurance company, hey, do I need flood insurance? They said, no, you're not in the floodplain. And then somebody forgot to open up a gate or whatever the thing was, and this guy says 100-year rain event, and I got screwed. And probably about 18 or 20 other people in Sleepy Hollow did as well. So I'm just wondering if that's going to be changed. I mean, I have flood insurance now. That's after I ripped out all of my flooring, all of my baseboard, repainted all of my rooms, and I did it all by myself. So I couldn't afford to pay for it, and I have less flooding than some of the other people in our neighborhood as well. So I'm wondering if that change is gonna be made, if somebody's actually redesignating Sleepy Hollow as a flood area. You know, I'm here for one reason. I wanna know, I mean, all this stuff to me seems like, you know, excuse my French, a bunch of BS. You know, it's stuff that I think needs to be done. I understand that you guys have responsibility to take care of us, but I come to these meetings every time wondering what the city's actually gonna do for the people that lost so much, that were denied from the city of Port Orange. Insurance company, you know, a play on words saying 100-year rain event, you know, that doesn't do much for somebody who's got 3 kids in the house, that had to rearrange everything, that had to, you know, pay money out of their own pocket, that just moved into Port Orange, that wants to be established, wants to stay here, you know, business owners. Yeah, and it just seems like.
We appreciate your input, sir. And Branford, if you would please put Sleepy Hollow on your list as the first nomination tonight of a community that needs serious consideration from a stormwater management standpoint.
And briefly, there's a project going on right now. Okay, the city council approved, you know, a project that, you know, is looking at the whole of Sleepy Hollow to come up with solutions. Okay, there's we have a company that's working on it now, and when they are done with the project, we'll present it to the city manager and city council, and then we can move forward with the project to address the flooding
You know,
issues.
Well, we're all pretty worried about it. Out of 30 people in here, 20 of us from Sleepy Hollow. So that's got to tell you something.
Yes, and we had a meeting, before the project started, we had a meeting, we invited almost everybody from Sleepy Hollow, okay? That meeting we came to at the Lakeside Center is ongoing now, okay? I think the first phase has been completed, okay? I'm waiting to move forward with the next phase. So we are looking at it and trying, and we are going to address the projects that you are talking about.
And I see you around the neighborhood a lot, and, you know, I commend you, because I hear a lot of stuff that you're doing that's good and stuff. But that was my main concern. I'm on the Sleepy Hollow board as well. What about the other people that move into Sleepy Hollow that are in the same situation as myself? You know, my job as a board member is to keep people happy in the area, keep people safe in our community. So I feel like, you know, our area should really be redesignated as a flood zone. Whatever needs to be done to do that, I think should be done.
I would invite you, sir, to come and see us, see me particularly at a private workshop. I can, and we are willing to come to your neighborhood and participate in a neighborhood meeting to address the neighborhood-specific things. We can best advise folks on their flood vulnerabilities on a property-by-property basis, and we can't cover all that tonight. But I did bring one map of the city. This is a particularly interesting map because February 19th of this year, FEMA rolled out new maps for Port Orange for the areas east of I-95 only that they've reevaluated with newer technology, and they've remapped. And this map that I have tonight is a comparison of what they're proposing versus what's in full force and effect at this moment. What they're proposing is to add 216 properties to the special flood hazard area. These are primarily shown in red, and they're concentrated along the B23 canal, plus a few other scattered properties. And they're showing 1,850 parcels to come out of the special flood hazard area. And they're primarily around the perimeters of the historically flooded areas. But I would invite you at some point when we're moving around from party to party, or after the meeting, come up, take a look at the map, and then on any specific properties, by all means call me. We'll chat about those on an individual basis. Thank you.
And one thing I do want to mention that, you know, I asked Larry because I'm not an expert, so I wanted to make sure I gave the correct answer to this. It is FEMA's job to come up with floodplain maps. We can go and talk to them, and they came around the county a couple of months ago I think they had a bunch of meetings in the county, and it's still under review, but they would be the agency to talk to about that. We have no direct influence over that.
Maybe there could be some sort of special consideration in that planning when you guys readjust the flood zones and so on.
And again, we don't, it's FEMA, it's not
Okay,
us.
So when FEMA does, I'm just giving my input because it's really the only time we can get it, so somebody needs to, hear it. I think that there should be some, a fail-safe there, the flood zone or non-flood zone could be flooded if the proper protocols are not followed. In my instance, the proper protocols weren't followed. It was even stated in a couple city council meetings that there was some neglect from the city. Even with all that information, those facts, my claim was still denied by the city's insurance. So, I'm not the only one that's kind of ticked about it, so, maybe this flood zone designation should include some sort of fail-safe like that. Okay, it won't be flooded, but if this doesn't operate, or if these protocols aren't followed, yeah, these areas will flood. So it's still the potential for those areas to flood, as was proved during the flood in September.
And again, this is something that we actually have no control of. I mean, it's FEMA, and I would say, again, I'm not an expert in that area, but you could say that about the top of Mount McKinley. If you had a water system up there,
the floodgate not
and something didn't work right, then it would be flooded. It still wouldn't be called a flood zone.
Correct.
But, right.
But the floodgate not opening up was not a FEMA issue.
That's not a FEMA issue.
Correct.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
So at this portion of the evening, what we're going to do is we're going to have a little bit of an interactive session. I was hoping you might come up and help me out, Jordan. So what we're going to do is, obviously, as you've heard tonight, hold on one second, I can't read it if you don't mind. Okay. And this is going to be interactive. Everybody's going to be talking and not shouting out stuff, but giving us some information. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of write down different ideas that you guys have to fix flooding. And I know the city manager originally said, we're not going to be able to fix individual problems. In some respects, in the future, yes and no. Because if we fix a large area, that will fix an individual problem. You know what I mean? If there's a large area that creates flooding in a bunch of different homes in an area, if we fix the problem in that area, it should help fix individual problems. The problem is if you fix the flooding in one yard, it just may go to the next yard if you do nothing for that entire area. But that being said, we do want some of your individual information and individual things like, I need to fix flooding on such and such street. And every time it rains, it floods here. Because what that will do is it'll help point us to hot spots that we may already be aware of, or we might not be aware of. And when we take this information, it's going to be used in two different ways. One of them is, if and when we get not a strategic plan, a stormwater master plan, we can take this information and give it to the person that does it and say, hey, by the way, we've already done some of your job for you. Here are the things that people are seeing in the city, and these can help pinpoint and identify issues that you may come up with in terms of telling us where our biggest problem spots are. Now, stormwater is not the only thing. It helps. Nothing prevents flooding. But there are other things, like building and development. If you build something or develop something the wrong way, it'll contribute to flooding as well. So for example, I think like maybe Larry was saying, certain homes before a certain time period or certain areas built before a certain time period, there were parts of the city that were built before the government thought like, hey, we probably shouldn't build homes in these areas. It's probably not such a good idea. And so, new zoning maps and new technologies have led to better building codes, better designs to help things like fires and floods and that sort of thing. So we want to hear your ideas of, I live in Arroyowood and I think you need to fix the culvert. I know that's one idea. I live in this area and I think we need to fix this. But hey, you know what? This isn't really my area, but I think this might help down the road. So those are the kind of ideas we want. And then we're going to do a second stage to that. And I'm not going to get there yet, and I'll hold you in suspense for a little bit on the really fun part. But I'm going to have Jordan, which color do you like? Black, red, or black? She likes black. Okay. So if you would, don't take up the whole thing. Right down the left side. switch back and forth. So I'm going to give you an idea, an example to start with. This is not going to be a realistic example. It will be an example. So for example, one of my ideas, I think I told them earlier, was we could bore under the entire city, jack it up and lift it 5 feet or 10 feet. Solve everybody's problem, right? Is it realistic? Probably not. Is it going to cost billions of dollars? Probably. Would it be really cool? I think it would be pretty cool. Fortunately, not realistic. So that's the kind of stuff. And the things I talk about, Ryanwood Culvert, or this area, or every time it rains, I get flooding on my street. They built drains in the middle of my yard, which are higher than the street, and the pond's higher than that. So, like that sort of thing. And then we can try to start seeing some patterns. And then very high-level things, too. Things that don't, again, mess directly with maybe your specific problem, but higher-level things. I think we should do a stormwater master plan to know what our biggest issues are. I think we should have better building codes to make sure that when we build a new development out west, that it doesn't affect flooding out east, that sort of stuff. So, anybody, and we'll go back and forth, anybody have anything they want to shout out? Yeah.
I have a general curiosity question.
Okay.
A year and a half ago, the city hired a management team to come in and solve this problem.
What's your name?
Fabian, sorry.
Hi, Fabian. I'm Alan. Nice to meet you.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. They did what you're doing now. They gave pictures. They came out, did site surveys with a group of people. They had survey people here doing the topographical map, and their charge. We had several meetings with these engineering firms, and they said they were going to make recommendations to the city in a variety of ways that they could solve the problem you're currently trying to solve. What happened to the results of that survey?
How long ago was that?
A year and a half ago.
Was that the?
November 4th. Yeah, Lakeside too.
Was that the? Sleepy
That
Hollow?
was Sleepy
There
Hollow.
were
It
three.
was the whole city. It wasn't just Sleepy
When
Hollow.
was this?
You said like a year?
A year ago?
The Lakeside Center.
About a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
They held over a day.
Yes. That project, that is what I mentioned, the first phase, as I speak, we are waiting for what we call deliverables from the company. That came up with what needs to be fixed. And then there's a second phase to that, that is going to be done. And then we're going to let you know what the projects are. Some of the projects, from what I've seen, there are certain areas that are really in the flood zone. There are going to be recommendations, like, we should put some retention ponds somewhere, we should put some pumps somewhere. What I asked them to include in the project is to look at the existing system, because